1 hour a day routine that will change your life. There is an hour hiding inside your day that decides the quality of your entire life. Not the loud hours filled with meetings, messages, noise, and demands. Not the hours you spend reacting, scrolling, rushing, surviving. I'm talking about the quiet hour, the hour most people give away without thinking. The hour that, if claimed with intention, becomes the dividing line between a life that feels accidental and a life that feels designed. History has always been shaped in stolen hours. Edison didn't change the world in crowded rooms. He did it in solitude, obsessing over problems no one else was willing to sit with. Lincoln didn't find his strength in applause. He forged it alone, wrestling with ideas heavy enough to break lesser men. Carnegie didn't build an empire by chance. He built it by compounding daily disciplines when no one was watching. Greatness has never been loud in its formation. It is quiet, repetitive, and deliberate. Most people don't lack time. They lack command over it. Their days are consumed by urgency instead of intention. They wake up already behind, already distracted, already pulled into other people's priorities. And by the time the day is over, they are exhausted, not because they did what mattered, but because they reacted to everything else. This is how potential slowly leaks out of a life, not in one dramatic failure, but in daily neglect. 1 hour a day doesn't sound revolutionary. That's why it works, because the human mind underestimates what consistency can do. We overestimate what can be achieved in a day and underestimate what can be achieved in a year. 1 hour a day is 365 hours a year. That's over 9 full work weeks focused entirely on becoming stronger, clearer, more disciplined, more aligned. Most people never give themselves that gift. The transformation begins with mindset because nothing changes externally until it shifts internally. The first minutes of this hour are not about doing, they're about conditioning. You are programming your nervous system for the day ahead. Your body wakes up before your purpose does, and if you don't take control, the world will do it for you. This is where intention replaces reaction, where you remind yourself who you are before the noise tells you who to be. Belief is not a slogan, it's a pattern of focus. What you consistently think about becomes what you emotionally respond to, and what you emotionally respond to dictates your behavior. The disciplined life starts with disciplined focus. In this hour, you choose what you dwell on. You rehearse strength instead of fear, possibility instead of limitation, not through fantasy, but through deliberate framing. You train your mind the same way an athlete trains their body, through repetition. Clarity comes next because confusion is expensive. Confusion drains energy. It creates hesitation. It multiplies doubt. Most people don't fail from lack of effort. They fail from scattered effort. In this hour, you simplify. You ask hard questions. What actually matters today? What moves the needle? What am I avoiding because it's uncomfortable but necessary? Clarity is not found, it's decided. And once decided, it becomes a filter that removes distraction without effort. Vision follows clarity the way a destination follows a map. Vision is not daydreaming, it's direction. It's the ability to see beyond your current emotions into a future that pulls you forward. Disney saw worlds that didn't exist yet. Ford saw mobility where others saw machinery. Vision stretches your tolerance for discomfort because you know where you're going. In this hour, you remind yourself of the long game. You reconnect with the reason endurance is worth it. Purpose turns effort into fuel. Without purpose, discipline feels like punishment. With purpose, discipline feels like devotion. Purpose answers the question that never goes away. Why endure this? Why push? Why persist when no one is watching? Purpose doesn't have to be grand to be powerful. It just has to be true. In this hour, you align your actions with meaning so your energy stops leaking through resistance. Discipline is not about restriction, it's about self-respect. It's doing today what your future self will thank you for. Most people wait to feel ready. The disciplined person moves anyway. They understand that action creates emotion, not the other way around. In this hour, you train your ability to act without negotiation. You build the muscle of follow-through, and that muscle, once strong, changes everything. Action without reflection leads to burnout. Reflection without action leads to frustration. This hour balances both. You act, but you also observe. You learn, you refine. Adaptability is born here, in the willingness to adjust without quitting. Edison didn't fail thousands of times, he refined thousands of times. The ability to learn quickly is a competitive advantage in every era, and this era is no different. Gratitude anchors the entire routine, not as sentiment, but as strategy. Gratitude stabilizes emotion. It prevents ambition from turning into emptiness. It reminds you that growth is an addition to life, not a rejection of it. When you appreciate where you are, you move forward without desperation, and desperation clouds judgment. Resilience is trained here too, quietly, by showing up even when motivation is absent, by keeping promises to yourself, by building evidence that you can be trusted. Resilience is not toughness, it's reliability. It's knowing you won't abandon yourself when things get hard. This hour is not about doing more, it's about doing what matters consistently. It's about reclaiming authorship of your life, one day at a time. When you protect this hour, your days change. When your days change, your identity shifts. And when identity shifts, your future.
The beginning is always quiet. No fireworks, no applause, just a subtle shift in how you meet the day. You wake up knowing there is a protected space waiting for you, an hour that belongs to your growth, not to urgency, not to distraction, not to other people's expectations. And something in your posture changes. You are no longer chasing the day, you are shaping it. This hour becomes a ritual, and rituals shape identity. Religions were built on them. Empires were sustained by them. The human mind craves structure, and when you give it structure aligned with purpose, it stops fighting you. Instead of negotiating with yourself every morning, you step into a role. You become the kind of person who shows up. And once that identity locks in, discipline stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like alignment. Mindset deepens here, not as optimism, but as precision. You learn to distinguish between what you can control and what you cannot. You stop wasting emotional energy on outcomes and invest it in inputs. Lincoln couldn't control the chaos of war, but he could control his resolve. Carnegie couldn't control the market every day, but he could control his standards. This hour teaches you the same lesson. Power lives in focus, not in force. As the days stack, belief evolves. At first, belief is borrowed. You believe because you're told it's possible. Then belief becomes experiential. You believe because you've seen yourself do hard things consistently. Confidence is not loud, it's earned. It's built when you keep promises to yourself in small moments. This hour becomes proof, and proof is stronger than affirmation. Clarity sharpens with repetition. You stop cluttering your life with unnecessary complexity. You realize that most stress is self-created through misaligned priorities. When everything feels important, nothing truly is. This hour teaches you to choose, and choosing is an act of courage because every choice is also a rejection. You reject distraction. You reject excuses. You reject the identity of someone who drifts. Vision matures from fantasy into strategy. You stop asking, "What do I want?" and start asking, "What kind of person would naturally create the life I want?" This subtle shift changes everything. Goals can be abandoned. Identity is carried everywhere. Disney didn't just imagine parks, he imagined a standard of wonder. Ford didn't just imagine cars, he imagined accessibility. In this hour, you imagine yourself operating at a higher standard. Purpose gains texture. It becomes less about proving something and more about contributing something. Early ambition is often fueled by insecurity. Mature ambition is fueled by service. You realize that the deepest satisfaction comes not from accumulation, but from alignment, from using your abilities in a way that matters. This hour becomes a place where ego quiets and intention clarifies. Discipline, practiced daily, rewires your relationship with discomfort. You stop seeing discomfort as a signal to stop and start seeing it as a signal of growth. This is where most people break because they interpret resistance as danger. You interpret it as expansion. The body adapts. The mind adapts. What once felt impossible becomes normal. This is the compounding effect of showing up. Action becomes cleaner, more precise, less frantic. You no longer confuse movement with progress. You act with intent. You measure. You adjust. Adaptability becomes natural because your ego is no longer tied to being right. It's tied to getting better. Edison adjusted thousands of times because his identity wasn't attached to any single attempt. It was attached to the mission. Learning accelerates here. Not academic learning alone, but self-awareness. You start to see your patterns clearly, your triggers, your avoidance, your strengths. Awareness removes judgment and replaces it with choice. You can't change what you can't see, and this hour becomes a mirror, not a cruel one, but an honest one. Gratitude deepens from surface-level appreciation into grounded presence. You start to notice how far you've come, how much you've survived. Gratitude doesn't slow ambition, it stabilizes it. It prevents burnout by reminding you that life is happening now, not someday. Resilience becomes part of your nervous system. You stop collapsing emotionally when things don't go your way. You recover faster. You respond instead of react. This is emotional fitness, built the same way physical fitness is built, through consistent stress and recovery. The hour gives you both. And slowly, something profound happens. The chaos of the world doesn't disappear, but it loses its authority. External events no longer dictate your internal state. You have an anchor, a center. You are no longer living from habit alone, but from intention. This hour becomes the foundation upon which the rest of your life stands. Meetings improve because your mind is clearer. Relationships improve because you're more present. Work improves because your focus is sharper. None of this happens overnight, and that's the point. Real change doesn't announce itself, it reveals itself over time. What started as an experiment becomes a non-negotiable. You protect this hour because you feel the cost of losing it. You feel the difference in your body, your thinking, your patience. You realize that this hour is not something you do, it's who you are becoming. And as you continue, day after day, something irreversible takes place. You stop asking if your life will change. You start knowing it will.
That knowing is quiet, but it is unshakable. It doesn't come from hype or hope. It comes from evidence layered over time. You've watched yourself show up when you didn't feel like it. You've watched your mind get stronger, your reactions slower, your focus sharper. And once you witness that version of yourself, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to believing you're powerless. This is where most people misunderstand transformation. They think change is about adding more habits, more rules, more pressure. But real change is subtraction. It's removing noise, removing excuses, removing the identity of someone who waits. This hour becomes a filter that strips life down to what matters, and what remains is powerful. The days you miss this hour, you feel it immediately, not as guilt, but as disconnection. You feel scattered, reactive, pulled outward. And that contrast teaches you something important. This routine isn't about productivity, it's about sovereignty. It's about owning your inner world before the outer world tries to claim it. Over time, your relationship with time itself changes. You stop seeing time as something chasing you and start seeing it as something you steward. You become deliberate with it, respectful of it. You understand that time is not equal. How you spend 1 hour can outweigh how you spend 10. One intentional hour can correct a day of chaos. One aligned hour can prevent years of regret. This is why the routine works regardless of circumstance. Whether you're starting from nothing or building on success, the principle is the same. Control the controllables. Shape the internal first. Everything else follows. Lincoln led through the darkest period of a nation because he had inner clarity. Disney rebuilt from collapse because he had inner conviction. The external world bends to the person who has mastered their inner one. You begin to notice something else, too. Your tolerance for mediocrity drops, not in others, but in yourself. You stop lying to yourself about effort. You stop confusing intention with execution. You become honest, not harsh, but precise. Precision is kindness to the future version of you. And the future version of you starts to feel closer, not as a fantasy, but as a trajectory. You can trace the line from today's actions to tomorrow's outcomes. This is empowering because it removes mystery. Success stops feeling random. Failure stops feeling personal. Everything becomes feedback. The hour evolves with you. Some days it's intense. Some days it's quiet. Some days it's heavy with reflection. Some days it's sharp with action. The structure remains, but the content adapts. This flexibility is key. Rigidity breaks people. Rhythm sustains them. Adaptability becomes second nature. When something doesn't work, you don't quit, you recalibrate. When energy drops, you don't spiral, you adjust. This is emotional maturity, the ability to stay in motion without self-destruction. Most people never learn this because they never slow down enough to listen to themselves. This hour forces that listening. Learning accelerates because ego keeps shrinking. You stop needing to be right. You start needing to be effective. You welcome correction. You seek challenge. You understand that growth demands exposure to new ideas, new discomforts, new standards. Comfort is no longer the goal. Alignment is. And alignment changes how you experience pressure. Pressure no longer feels like threat. It feels like responsibility, a responsibility you've chosen. Chosen responsibility is empowering. Imposed pressure is suffocating. This hour is where you choose. Gratitude, practiced consistently, reshapes ambition. You still want more, but not because you're empty, because you're capable, because you're curious, because you're alive. Gratitude keeps hunger clean. It keeps growth from becoming greed. It reminds you that progress is a privilege. Resilience deepens into calm strength, not the loud kind, the kind that doesn't need to prove anything, the kind that keeps moving when others panic. You recover faster. You don't spiral as long. You trust yourself. And self-trust is the foundation of confidence. Eventually, something remarkable happens. Other people notice, not because you announce it, but because your energy is different. You listen more. You react less. You move with intention. And they ask what changed. You won't say 1 hour a day like it's a trick. You'll say it quietly, if at all, because you know the truth. It wasn't the hour itself. It was what you did with it. It was the decision to stop living unconsciously, to stop giving away your best energy to distractions, to invest it in becoming. This is how lives change, not in dramatic overhauls, but in daily decisions honored over time. This is how ordinary people build extraordinary inner worlds. This is how potential becomes reality. An hour a day won't just change your schedule, it will change your standards, your identity, your future. And once you experience that shift, once you feel what it's like to live deliberately instead of accidentally, you don't ask whether it's worth it anymore. You protect it. Because that hour didn't just change your life, it gave it direction.